The people. Yes, the people will live on. The learning and blundering people will live on. They will be tricked and sold and again sold and go back to the nourishing earth for root holds. The people so peculiar in renewal and comeback, you cannot laugh off their ability to take it. Between the finite limitations of the five senses and the endless yearnings for the beyond, the people hold to the humdrum bidding of work and food, while reaching out when it comes their way for keepsakes lasting beyond any hunger or death. This reaching is alive. The panderers and liars have violated and smutted it, yet this reaching is alive for lights and keepsakes. This old anvil laughs at many broken hammers. There are men and women who cannot be bought. The fireborn are at home in fire. The stars make no noise. You can't hinder the wind from blowing. Time is a great teacher. Who can live without hope? In the darkness, with a great bundle of grief, the people march. In the night and overhead, a shovel of stars for keeps, the people march. Where to? What next? Let America be America again. Let it be the dream it used to be. Let it be the pioneer on the plain seeking a home where everyone is free. America never was America to me. Let America be the dream the dreamers dreamed. Let it be that great, strong land of love where never kings connive nor tyrants scheme that anyone be crushed by those above. And it never was America to me. Oh, let my land be a land of liberty. Let it be crowned by no false patriotic wreath, but opportunity is real and life is free and equality is in the air we breathe. There's never been equality for me, nor freedom in this homeland of the free. Say, who are you that mumbles in the dark? Who are you that draws your veil against the stars? I'm the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I'm the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I'm the red man driven from the land. I'm the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog, mighty crush the weak. Yet I'm the one who dreamt our basic dream in the old world while still a serf of kings, who dreamt a dream so strong and brave and true that even yet its mighty daring sings in every brick and stone, every furrow turn that's made America the land it has become. I'm the one who sailed those early seas in search of what I meant to be my home. For I'm the one who left dark Ireland's shore and Poland's plain and England's grassy lea. And torn from black Africa's strand, I came to build a homeland of the free. Oh, let America be America again, the land that never yet has been. Yes, I say it plain. America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath. America will be. As we join in meditation, let us think together of what it might mean to be common citizens of that fabled city where the power of love is finally greater than the love of power, where the prisoners are set free, where the workers receive the reward of their toil, where the swords are beaten into plowshares, and nation shall not make war against nation anymore. What is democracy? Is it wearing a campaign button, or voting, or running for Congress, or maybe running against Congress? Does it mean swearing in a new governor? Or maybe swearing at a new governor? Democracy can mean all of those things, but to really understand it, it helps to have a little bit of history. Back in the day when my mother was young, the president of this country was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Probably before your time for most of you, but all of you know that in those days the world was in terrible trouble. Here at home, factories were closing, people had no jobs, millions had lost their homes, there were vagrants wandering the lands, banks had gone bust overseas. The Nazis had invaded Czechoslovakia and overrun France. And Japan had its troops occupying China. Bullies and dictators with big armies were rattling their bayonets. And in this climate of chaos and fear, President Roosevelt gave a speech to remind Americans of the bedrock values on which our nation was founded, values that he said would have to become worldwide if we were ever to find a peaceful and secure future. It became known as his Four Freedoms talk. Freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, freedom from fear. These four were the doors to a safe and hopeful tomorrow, the president said. And a couple of years after that, an artist named Norman Rockwell put flesh and blood on the president's words with a series of paintings that showed what democracy might look like in the lives of ordinary people. And if you visit the Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, you can see the original artworks, and you'll see that, you know, they're very big. They're almost the size of that fireplace over there. You can almost walk into them and be part of the story. The first is freedom of speech. There's a man standing in what seems to be a town meeting, and from his complexion and his weathered hands, we know that he likely works outdoors for a living, probably doing some kind of hard physical labor. And two men are sitting down in the pews nearby, dressed in jackets and ties, and they're looking upwards towards this man with a respectful attitude. His shirt, the speaker's shirt. It's blue, it's plaid, it's a work shirt, it's open at the collar, but he seems very sure of himself, very sure about what he's saying, and he's obviously admired by his better-dressed neighbors who care more about what he is saying than the cut of his clothes. The second painting is freedom of worship, and the canvas is filled with the faces of men and women, all bathed in a soft, warm light. Their hands are clutched or folded gently in prayer. One's holding the beads of a rosary. People of all races and nations whose eyes seem to be full of care and burdens, but which are all facing in the same direction, focused on something invisible that we cannot see, somewhere beyond the edge of the canvas. And across the top of the painting are the words of James Madison, the father of the U.S. Constitution, according to the dictates of conscience. Freedom from fear, the third painting. Two young children are being tucked into bed by their mother, who's bending down with infinite tenderness in this little attic cubby that serves as their bedroom, and the father stands by her side, gazing down at the sleeping youngsters, proud, also protective. He's holding in his left hand a newspaper whose headline is visible, speaking of horrors overseas, with the headline, "Bombings Kill." Freedom from want. The viewer is welcomed into this last picture in the series to be a guest at a traditional Thanksgiving dinner with all the trimmings of turkey and mashed potatoes and cranberry, sharing the abundance of one family's celebration of this most typical American holiday. These four freedoms, as enunciated by Roosevelt and depicted by Norman Rockwell, they're also very close to being the touchstones of our own spiritual tradition, because after all, those pilgrims who originated the very first Thanksgiving, they also founded that first church, that meeting house in Plymouth, that is a Unitarian church today. And those New England town meetings where the men stand speaking, they're the outgrowth, they're the close cousin of the congregational meetings like the one we'll be holding here next month, that are still the hallmark of our faith, where people take direct charge of their own affairs in matters large and small. Freedom from fear, saying no to violence as a way to resolve our disputes. Freedom from want, building a world where everybody has a seat at the table. Freedom of worship, where Buddhists and Muslims and Jews and Christians can all live together as friends. Freedom of speech, where honest debate and open questions are always welcome. The world has changed dramatically since my mother was young. But these four freedoms are still a roadmap to keep us on the path. These paintings of Rockwell's are on international tour this year for their 75th anniversary of their creation. They're going to be passing through 7 U.S. cities as well as Normandy, France for D-Day before coming back home. And as part of this big celebration, the Norman Rockwell Museum and Foundation invited other artists to paint their own updated 21st renderings of these iconic images, because after all, they do need to be brought into this century. To his credit, Norman Rockwell had a deeply moral imagination. You know, while these paintings were created to raise money to fight the Nazis, they raised tens of millions of dollars in war bonds. He never depicted scenes of combat or success on the battlefield. You know, he chose to celebrate the green beans and the mashed potatoes. But the models that he chose for his paintings were usually his very own neighbors from the kind of postcard town of Manchester, Vermont, where he had his home and his studio. So they couldn't really reflect the full diversity of the America he loved. And he quit the Saturday Evening Post when they refused to let him depict African Americans in anything but menial positions. And he went to work for a new magazine called Look, where he began to immortalize new images like brave Ruby Bridges walking to school in Little Rock, surrounded by federal marshals. He was evolving just as the country was evolving, and I think he would have approved of these new artworks that are done in his style. Actress and activist Rosario Dawson, who is of Cuban and Puerto Rican ancestry, posed to exemplify freedom of speech, which is depicted on the cover of this morning's order of service. One senses that in this community meeting, women's voices are heard, and se habla español. Shortly after California legalized same-sex unions, artist Maggie Meiners asked two of her good friends, a married gay couple, to take the role of Graham and Gramps at the head of the Thanksgiving table, serving up the roasted turkey. And I'll tell you, grandparents never look so buff. And the same artist modified freedom from fear to show an African American mom tucking her two children into bed. She's in that very same attic cubby, that little bedroom, but she's holding a copy of the Chicago Tribune in her hand, and the headline reads, "Another black youth shot." The violence isn't far away. It's all too close. And these young lives matter. And when a Muslim man spoke at her Christian church, she painted him too, along with a woman wearing the traditional headscarf or hijab, along with a copy of the Quran, replacing the rosary beads that were in Rockwell's original work, or rather, not replacing the rosary beads. Those will always be there, but adding to them, expanding, broadening, because what these new paintings are saying is that Norman Rockwell's work may be outdated, but it's not dead. They're saying that now this is what America looks like. This is what the four freedoms look like, the forms of liberty. They're not just museum pieces. They're not just relics of a nostalgic bygone age. They're living, growing realities, although always in danger of being forgotten or corrupted. America's almost forgotten about the Great Depression. It's become the richest nation in the world, but it's in danger of moral bankruptcy because it leaves the poor behind. It's no longer threatened by armies from abroad, having achieved the military might to destroy the world many, many times over. But in the arrogance of power, we risk creating perpetual enemies and endless war. Having defeated the Nazis in Europe in our parents' generation, they're marching now in our own backyard. The country sometimes seems to have lost its soul, its sense of direction. But for that very reason, I think that what we do here matters. Congregations matter. People assembled in Taos United or at the People's Assembly to talk about the issues of the day, to pool their resources for the common good, to vote on how their money gets spent, electing their own town moderators and counselors and church boards, exercising the faculty of dissent, learning how to disagree with each other without being at each other's throats, practicing tolerance. All of these arts matter enormously if the four freedoms are to be kept alive, because democracy is not something that happens far away in Washington, D.C., or on the evening news. It starts right here. In congregations like this one, it began and it remains alive in our own liberal religious tradition. This, all of you, all of us, we are what democracy looks like.